Hi everyone, it's Sarah Todd. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you have been a viewer of mine for a while, you probably immediately noticed that I am in a different location. I normally have my famous blue walls behind me, but now I don't. So I am sharing the exciting news with you all that I have moved. I'm super excited. I am still setting up the apartment, so that's why it's a little bit bare today, but I've got to get some filming done. So this is actually the very first YouTube video that I am filming in this apartment. There will be a lot more content regarding the apartment to come. But yeah, had to address the new filming location because my beautiful blue walls are sadly gone, but much more exciting things to come from that. In today's video, I'm going to be chatting about the hassle that was getting my accommodations met in college. So for brief context, I've had a physical disability since I was 8 years old. I'm 24 now. I was originally paralyzed from the neck down, but it impacts my ability to move my arms and hands now because I regained the ability to walk. So I needed some accommodations to be able to attend college independently, and it was a whole process. I'm gonna take you through how I did it, all the barriers that I faced, because I received a lot of pushback my final 2 years of college, and it was so stressful. So let's get right on into it. So firstly, I started the college accommodations process very early. I toured Davidson, the school that I ended up attending, and after the tour, I went to meet with the director of disability services at Davidson. I didn't share like everything that I needed to share with her then because I hadn't even gotten into the school yet. But it was more of just like an introductory meeting so that we could meet each other and I could kind of get a sense of what the vibe was like. That was in September of 2019. And then I found out that I got into Davidson in December 2019. So once I got in, I sent the director of disability services an email and asked her if we could meet on campus during my spring break in March and do a walkthrough of the campus so that I could try out different doors and just see what general accessibility barriers there might be that I wouldn't have encountered on my campus tour. And in setting up this meeting with her, she told me that most disabled students generally get an idea of accessibility during their campus tour. And I remember sending that email to my mom and she was like, okay, she clearly doesn't get it. You're gonna have to be very frank with her and explain why exactly you need to walk around campus with her and try things out. So I think what she was thinking is like, if you're a wheelchair user and you go on the campus tour and you see there's a ton of hills or the pavement or pathways are very uneven, then you know that it's probably not super accessible to you. But that was not the case for me. Those were not the things that I was going to be looking at for my access needs. I needed to go deeper than that. So I explained that to her and she agreed to set up time with me during my spring break, which was very early March 2020. It was like March 5th and 6th, 2020 that we were there. So right before COVID, which is so weird to think about. So she was super nice, walked around the campus with me. We tried out doors on like every building. Like, it's a super small campus, but we tried out the doors on all the academic buildings, all the first year dorms, the dining hall, library, like everything. And I remember trying out doors in a first year dorm bathroom with her. And this bathroom door I could not open by myself. And she said something like, well, in the real world, not everything is accessible, so what would you do in that situation? And that comment was so frustrating to me because the school had the power to make this door accessible via an accessible door button. So there's no reason to be like, well, the real world is inaccessible, so like, why should we fix this door and make this door accessible? That comment has stuck with me because of how frustrating it was. But overall, walking around campus was such a positive experience. When we went to the dining hall, the director of disability services actually introduced me to the dining hall staff and they were so lovely. They were so excited to meet me. And then literally from my first day of classes and on, every time I went into the dining hall, there was help for me immediately. I've made some videos about this. I'll insert one here, just kind of playing as I talk. It was just such an amazingly accommodating experience in the dining hall. I loved the staff. I formed friendships with them. We always looked forward to seeing each other. So I was so happy that I got to meet them ahead of time and know that I would be taken care of. That was very reassuring and super kind of the Director of Disability Services to do that for me. Another really positive part of the walk around campus was we did identify some doors that I couldn't do, and they made sure to add some accessible door buttons or make the doors easier to open. So that was also very reassuring, just to kind of know what to expect at the buildings that I would be going in and out of. After I did that walk around campus, it was then time for me to submit my request for housing accommodations officially. So this process was extensive. I had some forms I had to fill out and then send to the disability office, and I had to get a medical professional to sign off on those forms. So I worked with my occupational therapist who had known me since I was 9 years old to do this process, and she advised me that it is much easier to get accommodations proactively rather than retroactively. So she said it was super important that I include anything and everything I thought I might need while I was at Davidson on that form from the beginning, so that I wouldn't have to then go back and make changes. She also said that I should just put anything that I think might help me, and they could always deny it, but it was better to at least try and see what I could get. So my form was something else. It was quite detailed. I'm going to read through it with you so that y'all can see all that my OT and I did together. So the first part is to be completed by a qualified clinician / provider. So my OT had to list my diagnosis / condition, date of diagnosis, date of most recent office visit, and then describe the symptoms, impact, and functional limitations of the student's condition, include severity of symptoms and how they would affect residential living. My OT wrote a super descriptive summary of my disability. She said that it's left me with impairments in my respiratory function, upper limb motor function, trunk function, and lower extremity function. I have neuromuscular scoliosis. I had a spinal fusion. My limitations in my upper extremity use is severe. And she gives all these technical descriptions. She says it impacts overhead reach, workspace in front of my body, ability to lift and carry items, endurance with fine motor activities, opening items, and only allows for one-handed technique. Accommodations for door entry, carry items, opening items, and placement of items in the environment will need to be taken into consideration. She says distance to dining hall and assistance in dining hall, class locations, accessibility to restrooms, location of room, proximity of laundry facilities should be considered. Yeah, it's a lot. She had to put that the expected duration of my disability is permanent. And then there's this page that's recommendations for housing accommodations, i.e. wheelchair accessible, lower level, equipment for visual or auditory disabilities, etc. This is where the extensive list comes in. So we wrote together, due to above limitations in upper extremity function, trunk mobility, lower extremity function, respiratory function, the following is required for housing. The dorm room should be close to entrance, elevator, and laundry facilities if possible. Entrance to the room, door should be equipped with a touchpad lock and preferable lever handle. Door weight should be taken into consideration due to upper and lower extremity weakness and decreased balance, and automatic door is preferable. Light switch heights throughout the room should be at 50 inches or less. In the room, a study surface should be provided that table height is 78 to 80 centimeters from the floor with ample room to spread items out for legible writing. Chair height should be approximately 18 inches from floor to allow for good position of hand / shoulder for writing / typing / reading. So as you can tell, we literally measured like my current workspace, my current living space, and figured out what worked best for me and then put it in this request. The bed should be a height of approximately 26 inches from floor. The closet, the door with lever handle and lightweight, hanger rack at varying heights between 38 to 54 inches. Any shelves in the closet should be at 29 to 43 inches. Surface of dressers / vanity furniture. Long ring pull handles on dresser. Height of top of dresser 44 inches. Storage / shelf area for books, set of books in classroom and set of books in dorm, requested due to limited carryability at height of 29 inches for top shelf. Recommendation is for bathroom in dorm room. Bathroom, the shower area, preferably a touchpad at height of 39 inches to turn shower on, off, and adjust temperature. So that is from the touchpad that I literally had at my house. We were like, you know what? they might not put this in my dorm room, but let's just ask, because the worst they can do is say no. So we're like, we'll ask and see what happens. In shower surface at height of 29 inches for automatic shampoo and soap dispensers, shelf or cutout to place right arm to wash upper body and hair at 43 inches, and hooks for washcloth at 38 inches. Outside shower bath mat / rug and hooks at height of 38 inches to hang towels. All of that is modeled after my in-home shower. So we just measured how everything was done there and transferred it over. Toilet standard height with room around toilet to allow for freestanding toilet paper holder from home. The one at home allows Sarah Todd to change the roll herself. A personal heater inside the room is preferred due to Sarah Todd's impaired body temperature regulation. Sarah Todd should have permission to have her own personal supplies, such as a hair dryer in her room. Laundry facility, close proximity, may use a rolling hamper to transport clothes to and from room. Requires front-loading washer and dryer and locker and laundry room at low height to store detergent-related items. Someone to help transport clothing and other items to laundry facility, load clothing into washer and dryer, and transport items back to dorm would be preferable. So I think this bullet point really shows, along with the dining hall bullet points, that housing accommodations are not just specific to your dorm room itself, that you can consider the laundry facility, the dining hall, those things as well. Trash removal and housekeeping. Trash removal will need to be done by building services, as Sarah Todd cannot transport heavy items. Sarah Todd may need assistance with housekeeping. That's another thing that you can even consider, is making requests for help with cleaning your room, taking the trash out, etc. Snow and or ice should be shoveled away from Sarah Todd's dorm as soon as possible to prevent her from falling, as she cannot break a fall. An emergency plan such as help with a fire alarm evacuation should also be in place. We requested an early move-in to help me make sure my dorm setup's adequate and functional. A personal aide / assistant to be permitted in my room, just in case I wanted that. We weren't sure if I would end up needing an aide in the morning, in the evening, or something like that. A swiper for card access to the building should be on the right side of the doorways if possible. My mailbox should be in the row 7th from the top. We went and looked at the mailboxes and figured out which row would be the best for me. And a worker should hold Sarah Todd's mail for her for pickup due to inability to use a key. In dining hall, Sarah Todd should have a designated helper to assist with getting food and drinks, cutting and bringing items to the table. So that's the list. There are 22 items on the list. We were like, we're gonna go all out on this and see what happens. We submitted this list and everything went so well, actually. They were so accommodating. I had a dorm room on the main ground level of the building. The building had an elevator that was nearby. A laundry facility was on the same level and it was also nearby my dorm. My dorm room had a bathroom with a toilet, a sink, and a shower, and they fully altered the shower. They put in the touchpad that I have in my in-home shower. They put in a shelf for me to put my right elbow on it so I could wash my hair and my upper body. They even built these little platform things, and I'm gonna insert pictures as I'm talking about all of these things. They built these little platform things so that I could put them on my sink counter and then put my right elbow on it to brush my hair, do my makeup, put clothes over my head, all of those things. It was incredible how accommodating they were. I felt so well taken care of. They really did everything that I needed. So my first year, it was great. My dorm room was so well set up for me. I was so happy. My first and second year, I lived alone both of those years. So for my sophomore year, accommodations were super easy. I did have to submit this form every year, but I basically just submitted the same form. I took out a few things that I realized I didn't need, but yeah, they didn't make me have my OT rewrite it every year. They let me just submit the same form every year. But for sophomore year, it was so easy because the way housing is done at Davidson is the dorms work by class year. So you switch dorms every year so that you can live with your peers who are in the same class as you. So for sophomore year, there were, I believe, like 3 or 4 sophomore dorm options, and only one of those was going to work for me because it had an elevator, it had a single room that had a bathroom in it. The other dorms did not have that at all. So they just put me in that room and they redid all of the things from my first year dorm room in this dorm room. They added the keypad lock onto the door. They altered the shower. It was amazing. They did it all again. So that was super easy because normally if you don't have housing accommodations at Davidson, you are put in a lottery system for housing and you just get a lottery number and you're assigned a random dorm that aligns with your class year. That's how housing works at Davidson. It's not like you can go in at a certain time and pick your dorm. You are put in one based on the lottery. So for my first 2 years, I did not do the lottery. I didn't have to worry about that. Things get complicated when it gets to my junior year, my third year at Davidson. I don't know why, but they became extremely stubborn once it came to my junior year. So for the junior dorms, there were a few options. There was an option that was 2 beds with an attached bathroom. So you share the same room with this roommate, you each have your own bed, but you're in the same room, and then you have a bathroom in your dorm room. There was like a suite situation where there was one side that had 2 separate bedrooms and like a little living room, and then you had a Jack and Jill bathroom, so you could walk through that bathroom to the other suite, and there were 2 bedrooms and a family room. So 4 people shared it, but you each had your own bedroom. You did share the bathroom that had 2 sinks, a shower, and a toilet. And then the final option was another suite situation where it was 4 roommates. Each roommate had their own bedroom, but it was not a Jack and Jill bathroom. It was just like almost like a mini apartment. Like you would walk in, there's a living room, and then there's the 4 bedrooms, and then the bathroom with the 2 sinks, the shower, and the toilet. So at the end of my sophomore year, when it came time for me to submit my housing accommodations for junior year, I explained to the disability office why the 4-person suite with the attached bathroom was the most accessible option for me. So that's the one where it's the living room and the 4 bedrooms and the bathroom. There's not a Jack and Jill bathroom. It's just like all attached into one suite. And they didn't want to listen to me. They told me that I would still have to go through the housing lottery to determine if I would actually get that type of dorm, and then they would make it accessible for me. And I told them, no, the other 2 options don't work. Here's why. I need to be in this dorm room. And they didn't want to listen. I had to get very personal with the disability office director and explain exactly why I needed that type of dorm room in detail. I tried so hard via email and via in-person meetings, and they didn't listen. So as a result, I had to go through the lottery, and I was at risk of not getting my most accessible dorm option. And the lottery put me in the second most accessible option, which was the suite situation where it was the 2 living rooms connected via the Jack and Jill bathroom, but everybody had their own bedroom. So thankfully I didn't get the least accessible option, which was the 2 roommates in the same room with the attached bathroom. I got the second most accessible option. But because I didn't get the option that was most accessible to me, there were accessibility barriers throughout my entire junior year living in that room. One of those barriers was because the bedrooms are smaller in the option that I was given compared to the most accessible option that I needed, and I can't elevate my bed to put items under it for storage because I can't get into a bed that's super high. I didn't have room for my drawer set that comes with the dorm room to keep that in my room. So I had to store my drawer set under my roommate's bed. And so every time I needed something from that drawer set, I had to ask her if I could go into her room and get it. So I tried to store things that I wouldn't need very often in there, but that was super frustrating and not fair to my roommate to have to store a whole extra set of drawers under her bed. There were other accessibility barriers I faced throughout that year that are more personal that I don't want to share. Yeah, it was not great, but I got through it. It wasn't horrible. The worst experience I had getting my accommodations met was my senior year. And I was like, wow, I've made it through 3 years of college, and now I'm having extreme trouble getting my accommodations met. I was so frustrated. So basically at Davidson, most seniors live in on-campus apartments. At least when I was there a few years ago, 95% of students lived on campus. Most seniors would live in the on-campus apartments. They had multiple buildings, but only 2 of those buildings had laundry in the building. So if you weren't in one of the buildings that had laundry, you had to walk pretty far to one of the buildings that had laundry. And one of those buildings that had laundry was already not an option for me because it was the only apartment that had 5 roommates to an apartment, whereas all of the other apartments had 4 roommates to an apartment. And my group, it was 4 of us. I was gonna live with 3 other girls. I didn't have 4 other people to live with, so we couldn't go for that 5-person apartment building. So I told them when it was time to do my housing accommodations, I need to live in this specific building called Ryburn because it has laundry and I am a group of 4, so I can't live in the other building that has laundry. So the laundry was the main factor for why I needed to live in that building. And then everything else for accommodating me in that apartment would come after the laundry, because there was no way that I could walk to any of the other buildings with my laundry. But they pushed back and they tried to put me in a different building called Davis that did not have laundry. And it was not close enough to Ryburn at all for me to be able to go there and do my laundry independently. I had a hunch that the reason they wanted me to live in Davis is that Davis is typically where the students with disabilities at Davidson live if they choose to live in a senior apartment, because that apartment building is designed a little bit differently than all of the other apartment buildings at Davidson. And it's where their like ADA or wheelchair accessible apartments are. And so it seemed like they wanted me to live there because they knew they were going to alter my apartment for me like they've been doing every year. And then those alterations could stay behind, like the keypad lock on my bedroom door and the pad to turn the shower on and off and the niche for me to put my elbow up in the shower. All of those things were gonna stay behind. So to me, it seemed like they wanted to alter one of those apartments so that it would be even more accessible for future disabled students, because they're more likely to live in Davis versus Ryburn. But the thing is, they needed to be thinking about me and my housing accommodations needs, because that is what we were currently dealing with. And then if future students had housing accommodations they needed met, then they could think about those needs when that time comes. Better yet, they could just decide to alter multiple apartments if they truly want the campus to be as accessible as possible. But, you know, most colleges aren't going to do that unless a student requests those things. But yeah, basically they were suggesting to me that they get me a motorized cart to put my laundry in and transport it from Davis to Ryburn and back. And I had to explain to them why that wouldn't work. I'm gonna read you all some of the email conversations that I had about this situation. But before I do that, I wanna show y'all the clip that I took. It's very sped up, but it's me walking almost the entire distance from the Davis apartments to the Ryburn apartment laundry room. It's me doing the walk, and look at how far this walk is. To go all the way down this sidewalk, cross this street, go up this little hill, get across this curb cut, go down this path, and then arrive at the laundry. So that's the walk, not all of it again, but almost all of it, that they wanted me to do with a cart for laundry, instead of just putting me in the apartment building that had the laundry. So I sent this email to the disability office director, and we had met the week before, and then she sent me a list of the accommodations that we had talked about that I need, and she wanted me to review that list. So this was my response. I said, "Hi, thank you for meeting with me Friday. Regarding my housing accommodations, this list is correct except for the laundry. I need to live in Ryburn, so I have access to laundry. Last night, I was at the apartments and I took note that the distance between Ryburn and Davis is even greater than I had initially remembered. Due to my inability to grasp objects, inability to carry heavy weight, limited stamina, limited ability to walk long distances, impaired body temperature regulation that causes my right hand to be unable to move in cool and cold temperatures, I cannot accept living in Davis. I realize that RLO is attempting to economize on the housing accommodations they put in place. RLO is the Residence Life Office. However, RLO is supposed to be planning for the current disabled students' needs, not the future disabled students' needs. That being said, we must get this resolved so that all my needs are being met. I've been living with my disability for nearly 13 years now, and it surprises me that RLO would presume to know my access needs better than myself. To answer your other questions, sounds good about the ADA toilet and the kitchen modifications. Once we get the laundry resolved, we can discuss ground or second floor. Thank you." So that's the email that I sent. I was very frank and very clear, and this was the response I got to that email. They said, "Hello, Sarah Todd. Thank you for this additional perspective. I can share specific concerns with RLO as they respond to your need to have accessible laundry. At this time, we are still in the process of determining how to meet your need for accessible laundry while living in Davis. I'll be in touch once I hear from RLO on their plans for implementing accessible laundry given your needs." I was so frustrated that they said, "Thank you for this additional perspective," because my perspective should be the main perspective and pretty much the only perspective that we're considering when it comes to my access needs, not an additional perspective. It should be the main prioritized perspective. Okay, so there was that conversation. Then there were conversations via email about this cart idea that they were so hung up on. So then they sent me this email that says, we won't be ready to meet on Tuesday because they want to check in with a staff member who has been looking at possible options for assistance with moving your laundry. They'll get with me on the possible options, and then I suggested we meet with you so that we can confirm it's a device that you would be able to use in terms of handle, height, and controls, etc. So please stay tuned. I was like, no, why are we focusing on this cart? We need to be focusing on making sure that I live in Ryburn so that I have access to laundry. And I sent a check-in email and they said that they let me know they just received the cart and they will be reviewing its functionality later this week and should have an update for you by early next week. I responded and said, thank you for the update. However, I'm unsure why the focus is still on assessing cart functionality, as I have made it clear that I must live in Ryburn and explained why that is so. It is imperative that this conversation shifts from assessing cart functionality, which is not necessary as no type of cart meets my need to have laundry in the apartment building, to adapting a Ryburn apartment to meet my needs. A cart does not solve the problems of distance, cool and cold temperatures causing my one slightly functional hand to be unable to move, and my limited ability to carry and grasp objects. Thank you. So I sent that, and it became super clear to me that my conversations with the disability office were not going to work out. So I then went to the 504 coordinator. So her job is not the same as the disability office director's job, but she does do some similar things. And I was just feeling kind of helpless because I was like, I've sent so many emails, I've had so many in-person meetings. It was literally keeping me up at night because I was worried I wasn't going to have my needs met for the apartment that I needed. And I was talking about this with my counselor at school. Like, it was really upsetting and impacting my ability to like function properly and like focus on my schoolwork. So I was just at my wit's end with this. So I met with the 504 coordinator and then I emailed her and I said, thank you for meeting with me the other week. I found our conversation to be very helpful. Do you have any updates for me regarding my housing accommodations? And she ended up asking me to meet via Zoom. So I made a post about this on Instagram. So I said, after all that, the 504 coordinator emailed me today asking to Zoom. During our Zoom call, she said she went to the area where the apartments are and was like, yeah, a cart definitely won't work. LOL. So I am living in the apartment building that has laundry facilities. Wouldn't it have been novel if they had just listened to me from the beginning when I told them what I need? So I literally had to go through all of that. I had actually even, in the midst of talking to the disability office director and the 504 coordinator, met with the president of the college, who I knew pretty well because he was very supportive of my disability club. But I literally met with him and told him what was happening. He assured me that I would get my needs met. And so I don't know if he really played a role in this or not, but I didn't talk to him about this until I felt like I had no other options. I was like, this is my last resort. Like, I need to get my needs met, and I'm going all the way up to the top since I've started with the people below him first. Judy Human told me that you should never go straight to the top, because then if that person doesn't meet your needs or get you the accessibility and accommodations you need, you have nowhere else to go. So it's always best to start with the people below and kind of work your way up if you have to. And that's what I did. So yeah, after all of that hassle, they did end up putting me in Ryburn. I ended up living on the ground floor right next to the laundry room. All I had to do my laundry was exit the apartment, turn right, walk a few steps, and enter the laundry room. It was perfect. And I knew that it would be the most accessible place for me all along. And that is why I told them that it would be the most accessible place for me. And I don't know why I ended up having to go through all of these hoops and hassle and headache and emails and meetings just to end up getting my needs met in the very end, when that could have happened from the beginning without all of that hassle. And that took up a lot of employees' time as well. It was not just my time. So don't know why all of that happened. Like I said, I have my suspicions about them maybe trying to economize on accessibility and making sure that the Davis apartments were the most accessible, given that those are like the wheelchair accessible apartments. But anyway, it was such a hassle. But I think a big lesson I learned from this is that it's so important to stand up for yourself and stand your ground. I sent so many emails, I attended so many meetings. I was very frank, I was very assertive, I was very clear, and I got what I needed. That is sadly not always the outcome for a lot of people. they can do all of those things and still not get their needs met. So I'm very fortunate that I did eventually get my needs met, but I learned from that I'm not going to back down, that I'm gonna keep doing it because I know my access needs better than anybody else. So yeah, that's the lore about how I got my college accommodations met. I can always talk about academic accommodations in another video if that would be interesting for y'all, because that's a whole other ball game. It's typically done differently. It definitely was for me and at Davidson. So yeah, that's a whole other thing. That whole process was much easier for me. Still not perfect, but easier. But yeah, I could always talk about that in another video. If you are about to go through the college accommodations process, or if you've gone through this, or if you're currently going through it, I hope that this video was maybe helpful to perhaps see examples of what you could include on your list, or how you might write a list with your requests, or how you might write an email asserting your needs or standing up for yourself. Hope that this is helpful. Really appreciate you all watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. I post a new long form video every Monday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 12 p.m. Pacific Time. I hope to see you all at the next video. Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye.